Today we are diving into a topic that might feel all too familiar: how prolonged stress and trauma can impact your ability to return to emotional balance. And the trick to overcoming it might not be what you expect. But before we get into it, let me introduce myself. I'm Jen Hachia, and on this channel, we explore the complexities of psychology and manipulation in relationships and professional settings. If that sounds interesting to you, you are welcome to subscribe, and if you are already a regular watcher, hello there! Now, let's get into it. Have you ever found yourself drained in what should have been a relaxing day? Maybe you watched a few episodes of your favorite TV show, or you had a nice picnic with friends, or even spent a few hours reading a book or journaling, but instead of feeling recharged, you feel just as exhausted, if not worse. If this sounds like you, you might be dealing with the aftermath of prolonged stress and trauma. And this is much more common than you may think. So let's talk about why this happens, what it does to our bodies and minds, and how we can start to reset ourselves. When we talk about prolonged stress, we are not just talking about having one bad week at work or occasional stressful situations. We are talking about periods of stress that stretch on for weeks, months, or even years. And this could be a chaotic work environment, a toxic friendship, trauma in childhood, or even the COVID-19 lockdowns. And the issue with these kinds of stressors is that they don't just disappear once the situation changes or resolves. In fact, our bodies and minds continue to carry the weight of it long before the stressor has passed. And it's easy to assume that recovery works in a straight line, where you slowly return to baseline over time without really doing anything else besides distancing yourself from the situation. But research shows that that's not the case at all. In fact, recovery can be just as complex, if not more, than the stress itself. As Bessel van der Kolk famously wrote, "The body keeps score." And what this phrase means is that the effects of stress don't just disappear in our minds, they are stored in our bodies too, and in our subconscious minds, which lead to things like high blood pressure, a weakened immune system, sleep disorders, and even chronic illness if left unaddressed. And it's not just your physical health that suffers, because stress also affects our ability to emotionally regulate. When we have been under stress for too long, it can become our emotional baseline. In other words, stress becomes normal and relaxing feels wrong. And this is because for some people, stillness or relaxation is often associated with being lazy or being unproductive or just a general sense of wrongdoing. And growing up in an environment that doesn't support relaxation can make it even harder to unwind later in life. And I can even relate to this with my personal experiences as well, because for a long time, I was stuck in a cycle where I felt that I needed to always be on the move, always achieving, always striving, and never resting. Resting was something that felt very uncomfortable for me. And if you have ever been in a similar situation and feel like you might have been avoiding rest because it feels like you're doing something wrong, well, join the club. But the good news is that there is a solution. And it is important to address this problem because when you are always stressed, your body doesn't just get used to it, it actually doesn't get the chance to rest. And that exhaustion, although it might not feel like it in the moment, it will catch up with you. So how do we begin the process of breaking free from the cycle of constant stress and stress addiction? Well, first we need to recognize what emotional baseline is and what it means. After periods of stress, your emotional baseline, the state that we return to when we experience emotional arousal, usually, it gets distorted. Our bodies stop learning how to feel relaxed and at ease after a state of heightened alertness, which is normal and human to feel a state of heightened alertness What is not normal is to not be able to return to a baseline where there is no heightened stress. And what happens here is that it can lead to the chronic fatigue that we talked about, autoimmune issues, and even recurrent sickness. And the solution might sound simple, but it's a little trickier than that. Because yes, you need to return to emotional baseline. This we already covered. But for someone who has been living in a state of stress for so long, this can be incredibly challenging. You might feel compelled to keep looking for that next stress-inducing high. And this is where it gets tricky because chronic stress can lead to stress addiction. Because stress releases dopamine, which is that feel-good chemical in the brain that makes us feel temporarily better. And this is why some people get addicted to perfectionism, work, or even chaotic relationships. Because stress feels good because of the dopamine rush. And that's where we get caught in the vicious cycle, because we start surrounding ourselves with people and situations that continue to keep us in this state of stress, whether it's drama-filled relationships or high-stress work environments. And over time, we start to confuse emotional turmoil with excitement or passion. We get used to the chaos, and sometimes we might even end up craving it unconsciously. And this leads us to the crucial point of how do we break free from this? It's strange, but this is the solution. We need to embrace what feels boring. Yeah, you heard me right, boredom. The healing process is slow and it's not glamorous. It is definitely not like Eat, Pray, Love, the movie with Julia Roberts. It is not like that at all. It is sitting with yourself, not to try to fill the void with work or social media or drama, but learning to just be. This might sound boring because it is boring, but it is the path to returning to emotional baseline. And if you're curious, here is where the neuroscience comes into play. Because when you are constantly stressed, your body is flooded with cortisol, a hormone that prepares you to fight or flee. But as your body stays in this constant state of arousal, it has a hard time releasing that stress after the moment has passed. And this is where we need to consciously reset. Practicing being still, sitting through the discomfort of doing nothing, and allowing our bodies to learn that that stillness, although it feels boring, it actually means relaxation. Eventually, you won't feel that it is boring. You will just feel that it actually feels good to not worry and not do anything, because our human bodies weren't born to be in constant stress. Yes, stress is a part of life, and it is a necessary part of life because we also need cortisol and fight or flee reactions to protect ourselves from situations. But being in that constant cycle inhibits us from experiencing the beautiful things in life and the beautiful relationships in life. And there are plenty of studies out there that show the effects of prolonged stress and how it can increase the risk of developing conditions that are chronic, which proves how vital it is to reset our emotional systems. So remember, all you have to do is just learning how to sit and letting your mind wander. And yes, your brain will often attempt and even go to dark places and give you some random stressful memory that you hadn't even remembered before, and then you remember it and it stresses you and it makes you feel uneasy. And you might remember things that bring you worry or anxiety, but in that moment, when you are sitting still and your brain starts to do this to you, this is the moment where you have to remember that thoughts are not you. You are not your thoughts, and you can be the spectator of your brain function in a way. You can observe those thoughts and realize that they don't need to own you. And that is when you start to take control of your reactions and letting it be known to your brain that you want to return to emotional baseline and you are not going to surrender to whatever dark thoughts or stress-inducing impulses that your mind might be telling you that you should surrender to. And remember that you don't have to go through this alone, and you are not going through this alone. There are thousands of people in the world trying to overcome prolonged stress, trying to learn how to relax. And so maybe that thought can be comforting to you. I know that for me, it is quite comforting to realize. And at the time when I was learning how to let go of this permanent stress and this permanent need to be producing, thinking and remembering that there are other people in the world going through the same thing, it makes you feel like it is a collective effort and a collective struggle and a collective way to be healthier and cultivate these better, more positive, optimistic vibes in our lives so we can actually start enjoying life and the beautiful things that life has to offer and that the world has to offer as well. And if you do not have a support group in real life, join a group or community online, or just sharing what you are going through with someone that understands or even relates can help you as well feel more empowered to take a step towards rebuilding your relationship with rest and with relaxation and with yourself. And now that this has been explained, I would love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever experienced the aftermath of prolonged stress? And if you have, what has helped you through your healing journey? I would love to discuss this in the comments below. And remember that you don't have to agree with everything I say. You can disagree. I am always open to different perspectives and to have a meaningful conversation. So yeah, thank you for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and watch the other videos from this series or the other videos from this channel. They will be interesting, I hope, for you. And I will see you on the next one. Bye!